Magical. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jupyter community call for January 2023. All those J's tripped me up today. I'm Isabella. I'm going to be your host today. And yes, I am so excited to be here ringing in the new year with all of you. I'm sure you've heard a lot of Happy New Year's from other places at this point, but since it's our first call of the year, yeah, Happy New Year to you all. I'm glad you're here for another year of sharing what's happening around Jupyter. So there's a few things I do have to say before we get started. As always, the Jupyter community event. So we are bound to the code of conduct. Everyone here, that includes me. You can find that at any time at jupyter.org/conduct. 2, right, this call is being recorded, gets posted publicly. The notes get posted publicly as well. And finally, correct me if I say your name wrong, please. I'm trying to show as much respect as I can. So that helps me as much. So thank you. And for anyone who hasn't been here before, I'll give a quick rundown of what we're going to do. I've linked the agenda a few times. Feel free to sign in if you want. We're basically just going to follow that document for the hour. So we're going to go step by step. People have already signed up with shares they have, which thank you for that, by the way. I love seeing an agenda with shares in it. Makes my day when I check. And yeah, with that, we'll get going. The first things we have are the short reports, celebrations, things that don't require a lot of discussion, but people wanted to call out about the community. I do have one, but anyone else want to go first? I'll be quiet for a few moments.
I wanted to call out that a recent release of Traitlets and Jupyter Core now supports tab completion with arg-complete. It's kind of non-trivial to set it up, unfortunately, so maybe we'll figure out some way to package that a little bit better. But you know, Jupyter-tab, there's 50 things in there, so it's nice to be able to get more, but I haven't been able to play with it more. But that's Steve and a couple new contributors actually got that out.
Awesome. I like that. Yeah, we'll add another one, but yes, that's good. That's great to hear. Good releases. Anyone else have stuff they want to say?
I did have one quick thing. I don't know if anyone saw it, but I'll pop it into the chat. There was a blog in Medium about the new governance launch. So I'll put that in the chat so you guys can give it a read. It was a project that they've been working on for a couple years now. So it's really cool. So I'll pop that in there for you to read it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That has been years of work. So super cool to see that happening and to see it announced like that. I always want to sing like a Jeopardy theme, but that seems like very US based, so I just don't. But yeah, anyone else? Okay. My final one I want to shout out, maybe a little selfishly, right? This is our second consecutive year of community calls. They've been there before, but you know, to be honest, wasn't always sure how long we would keep this going. So I'm pretty happy to see 2 years. I think that's really awesome. So woohoo. Thank you all for continuing to attend, continuing to bring things. As cliche as it is, these really wouldn't be possible without people. So I do want to genuinely thank you.
Thank you for running and organizing all of these over the past 2 years. There's been a lot of work I'm sure that folks haven't seen. So thank you so much for making this space for everybody, seriously. And there's a lot of resources if anybody wants to host these events. If you want to help us out, that would be rad too, right?
We are working on it. Yeah, I've been talking to some people trying to do some convincing for sure. As with any open source thing, it's good to have different people who know how to work the resources, who know how to run the meeting. So yeah, but thank you for bringing that up. Thanks, Tony. Cool. Any final inspiration for short reports, or we move into the actual agenda items? Going once, going twice. Okay, awesome. Big agenda item time. I am so happy to see things on here. Stephen, are you ready to go? You're the first on my list for IPyFlow.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. You should be able to share screen. Let me know if anything's weird though.
Okay, fantastic. I guess I'll get right into it. So hi everyone, my name's Stephen. I work at Meta on Bento, which is like the company's internal Jupyter notebook offering. But I'm not actually talking about any of that stuff. I was hoping to talk a little bit about this project that I've been working on kind of on my own time for, I guess, 3 years now. I've been procrastinating on kind of putting it out there for a while. So I figured, better late than never. So this is called IPyFlow. It's like a data flow aware Jupyter kernel. So I'll just like illustrate some of its features, just by going through like a quick demo. So one of the things that you get with it is execution suggestions. So if let's say I run this notebook from top to bottom, and then I come back up here and I change something, which is obviously a common operation, I'll get execution suggestions for what maybe I should run next to pick up the updated thing, the updated cell, as well as maybe what I want to avoid, since it might depend on something that needs to run first. So in this case, I need to run cell 3, and then I get a suggestion to run cell 4 here. I think I actually showed something similar to this at JupyterCon 2020, and I think Jason Grout actually asked, well, why could you just reactively run everything? And there have been a few reactive Jupyter kernels that have shown up over the years, but I've sort of been ambivalent on the idea of reactivity, and wanted to figure out a way to put the power for whether to opt into that, like let the user decide basically. So if I run this, I get these execution suggestions, and then I can do Command Shift Enter to take the suggestions basically and reactively run everything. Now, one of the things I also wanted to quickly touch on is why this is a little bit more challenging in Python than in some other cases like Observable or Pluto, which is in Python, you have like really flexible, you can, it's very difficult to tell, what data is getting touched at any given time, basically. So let me just give a quick example here. So if I have like a class with 2 fields, I create an instance of the class, and I have, a cell that looks at foo.foo and another cell that looks at foo.bar. If I come up here and I say foo.foo equals 42, of course, I want to run the next cell, but not the cell after. Oh, except I need to actually pick it up. And similarly, foo.bar. Okay, well, it's because I didn't initialize them properly. But anyway, we want to run this one, but not this one. So being aware of like nested data is like a really tricky thing, I guess. And then the last thing I wanted to quickly touch on is like, there are also these reactive modifiers. So I can say, update foo.foo, and then anything that references it, please run cells that reference it. So if I put a $ in front of that and run it, it will kind of reactively update foo.foo. Similarly, I can also use this reactive syntax in a load context. So I could put a $ in front of here. And when I change foo.bar, the cell that references it will automatically get rerun. Of course, I can also just use Command Shift Enter to get these things to trigger, but you can also make it explicit in the syntax itself. And then the last thing I wanted to quickly touch on are two quick features: dynamic backward slicing and IPyWidgets integration. The IPyWidgets integration is probably cooler, so I'll do that first. One of the things that I always thought would be cool to be able to do is to let IPyWidget sliders update kind of other cells. Oh, by the way, the double $ syntax means like watch this value and recursively execute dependencies. So if I change this slider, this wise, which references slider.value, will automatically rerun, and then the plot here will also automatically rerun since we use the double $. When wise updates, the plot will also update since this makes it recursive. So when I run this, it will automatically update the plot, basically. And the last thing I wanted to touch on is obviously, in order to understand what data touches which other data, we need to have this integrated pretty deeply. But one of the cool things you can do once you have that is you can actually, for any given symbol, reconstruct exactly the code necessary for that symbol. So that's this API function code here, and we can print the code for this plot that I created. And now we can see, okay, it's using 0.4 for the slider value. And if I adjust the slider here, now it's using 0.7, and the plot reflects that. And so we can more easily keep everything in sync. So yeah, that's basically, just wanted to put it out there and gather any feedback. I've been working on this for a while, and I'm probably not going to have too many more cycles to work on it in the coming months, most likely. So also I want to say really appreciate the opportunity to get to talk about some of this stuff. So thank you, Isabella, for putting these on. I'll stop blathering now.
No, of course. Go ahead, Kapanik.
Yes, Stephen, this is so cool. I've also been working on the thought of keeping the document model in that kind of state in the back end, not just in the front end. So I'd love to follow up with you after this. But a couple of questions. I've found it challenging to observe data changes on mutable data types, such as you can't observe a traitlets list when you append an object to that list. Did you solve that in IPyFlow?
I wouldn't say it's solved, but it's handled. Yeah, one of the general challenges of mutable data in general is it's too expensive to figure out everything that could be happening to it. The way IPyFlow handles it is it only looks at changes inside of the notebook, and for changes outside of the notebook, it relies on some special annotations based DSL to say, okay, when I call this API, this piece of data will change and it will depend on this other piece of data. That's manually specified. And so because it only is watching stuff in the notebook, it's reasonably low overhead. For something like a list, we have an annotation on like list.append, which says, okay, this is creating a new element at the end of the list. So if something depends on like lists of -1, then that has now changed and you need to rerun that.
Thanks. The other thing I would like to hear just a little bit, kind of what went through your mind is how you converted the source code in each cell into symbols and then built a distributed, like a DAG out of that. Is that how you're doing the suggested reruns?
Yeah. So basically, I think it's like kind of building a dynamic, or it's building like a forward slice, so that when I run cell, like let's say I run cell A and then cell B, if cell B, as it's running, it looks at all of the data that's being used in a load context. And so when it sees that it uses a piece of data whose most recent timestamp has been updated in cell A, then it says draw an edge from cell A to cell B with, you know, this piece of data on the edge, so that if cell A changes that piece of data, then it knows to rerun or, you know, provide the suggestion for cell B.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Sure.
Tony, right?
Tony. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. I
Sorry,
don't know
no,
the
it's
names.
TF on here. I know it's Tony.
Sorry. Yes. That was a cool demo. I'm curious about how you use this. These are clearly demo notebooks, but if you're using this in Anger, how does it work? And how do you handle the hidden state you might make when you're sharing your notebooks with your colleagues, right? Like, I understand we want to get to these weird places, but what's the starting place that you would recommend if we were PyFlow users so we could connect to our, colleagues?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I haven't like thought about that too much, to be honest. But it's mostly, I would say it's mostly geared towards like individual use for like a particular running session, and doesn't really do much to capture like the state and like put it in like the NB format or anything like that. So if you want to share it, then the same caveats apply as for like normal Jupyter. It kind of loses all of the dependency relationships and that sort of stuff. If you wanted to get started with it, the hope is that it should, if you don't do anything special, the hope is that it shouldn't change the behavior of the notebook at all. So you could just start with like the execution suggestions, and then maybe you trust it more, maybe you trust it less. But if you start to trust it more, then that at that point, you might start using like Command Shift Enter to accept the suggestions.
Very cool. Thank you. Yeah, I'm noticing that there's like I have a feeling there's going to be a category of tools that don't really make it to the publishing place, but like they just help you with writing here, and this seems like a tool that's really a writing facilitator that deals with some of the new problems that you have when writing notebooks.
Yeah, absolutely. I put it in the same category as like a language server.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I am looking to move on to other agenda items, but if anyone else has last comments, we can do another. Okay. Yeah, thanks so much. And I really agree with the better late than never sentiment. I'm glad that you got some time to work on this and show it. Like, it's just, yeah, I super enjoy seeing what people are up to. And this is really cool. I don't think I've seen anything like this before, to be honest with you. So thank you so much for showing me something new after years of demos.
Well, thank you so much, Isabella, for making the space to kind of show this off. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. And if anyone thinks of things later, feel free to talk in the chat. It won't distract me at the very least. So cool. With that, Nick, you're up. for
Oh, I was going to
Jig.
distract you. Jig. It was just, it was a really short name on PyPy. I was looking for short names, and I'll show you why. All right, share screen. Everything always goes to hell as soon as I share screen. But here we are. There's everybody. Hi, everybody. I can even turn my face on. There we go. Hi, it's me. Hi. I'm going to turn it back off because, you know, whatever. And I'm actually, this is the thing I've learned. If I stop your incoming video, that actually helps me. So can you guys still see my screen
Yes.
without video? All right. Just like every time I try and demo, it does that. Okay. So this is Jig. Jig is a command line utility that you can install. It's pretty easy to remember it. It's a Jupyter application, and it's a Jig application. I could probably tell more about that. Anyhow, and it right now, all it does is it lists and runs Jupyter app commands from the command line. So you got to have a Jupyter app open, which I do over here. So I'm going to do a Jig list. And there are all the commands that this application can run right now. And so, for example, I can open a file. Let's do this one. Let's not do the whole thing. So I'm going to open that file. There's that README MD. And now I'm going to open up, because I happen to know, because I just opened that, I want to look at the Markdown preview of that. So there's the Markdown preview. It looks kind of ugly. I have no idea how you would do that, what I just did. I don't know how to describe that. I don't know if there's a command for that. So yeah, that's pretty much how it works. It just runs commands from, you know, your browser or whatever. And it is kind of a general purpose thing. It's got a REST API. That's what the CLI actually uses. So if we go look at my whatever, Jig commands, this is all the applications I have running. It really doesn't know what to do with multiple running applications right now, or remote applications. It can do something with them. So like I could probably run, you know, something up on Binder and then command it from my CLI, but I haven't really figured that out yet. What's the right way to describe it? Let's see here. That's kind of it. Oh yeah, there's a cool thing that it does. So one of the things I added, it talks over a WebSocket with a real server, but it can also work just in browser. And so the first usage of working in the browser, well, hell, why am I using that file tree? That's silly. Let's not do that. Let's go look at, let's open our browser path to docs, boards, index MD. Oh, that's ugly. Let's turn that Markdown preview back on. But then it looks like that. I don't know. Maybe there's a way to launch it with a specific mode. So you can create these command boards, which are little things that let you run stuff from another window. So right now it has to own that window. And, you know, mea culpa, I don't remember all the commands for these things, but here's some command boards. I'm going to add a command boards. That's awkward, isn't it? This is demo for the demo and icon, whatever. I'm not making an icon right now. Demo, and it's got a template. This UI is trash for actually writing some source, so I probably need to do something else. And I think that it just showed up there. All right, so now I got this board here. So if I pop that, it doesn't open it properly. These are all the commands, and it just iterated through this data structure over here and built me up this thing. So we can do all kinds of dangerous stuff. Let's do something not dangerous. Let's just open the licenses. So there we go. There's the licenses, right? Okay, so that's cool. So where it gets fun is when you can pop it out to the other tab. Oh, we just went crazy now. So, you know, now I could be over in something, you know, a more limited mode. Like I could just be looking at just my file over here, right? And app utilities, anchor font size. Let's do it. That didn't do anything. How about?
I don't know if that works. Yeah.
Come on, I just want bigger fonts. Go to line. See, anything that has args, I don't quite know how to do that yet. Copy to clipboard might work. Nah, this isn't in a notebook. And I don't have terminals. I can turn on the status bar. There we go. So that's
Hey,
fun.
Nick, where are all these commands coming from, man?
There you go. So every extension, every plugin. So this also tells you which plugins you got. Let's look at this right here. There's no way to tell which one is which, right? As to who does what. But this, oh, come on. Here we go. Preview. Here we go. So every one of these plugins that is in this application, I have 136 of them, which is just mine and one other one. Each one of them can register commands. The application has a single registry of commands, which is why this works. So if we dig in here, sometimes you can kind of figure it out, like collapsible headings. I don't know where they came from. But application, that was fairly clearly made by core. Log console, that's, the log console. Main menu is some stuff that's added by the first one. And then notebook. Notebook has like 1,000 commands. So when you're writing an extension, you can create that, but then you can also create rando commands from other places, right? So there's a package called Jupyter Lab commands. This lets you create commands on the server that you can run from the client. So you could run commands in your client on your server from your server, right? So it's a very rich ecosystem that's being used all the time when you're using Notebook 3, Notebook 4, Jupyter Lab 3, Jupyter Lab 4, or the upcoming Notebook 7. And this also works in Jupyter Lite. Those little command boards, those work just great in the browser, even though it doesn't have a WebSocket. So one of the really good things that's coming in Notebook in Jupyter Lab 4. Sorry, I was up releasing all night, right? What are you gonna do? One of the things that's coming there is if you look in the actual data model that we get back here. So let's look what a command knows about. So my first command, it knows about activate next tab. So it's enabled, it's visible, and it's got a label. They also have a place to put usage, which is human readable text, just like a blurb of text. But the big money is in the upcoming release. There will be described by, and that will actually tell you exactly what those arguments should be that it accepts, right? So, when I was opening that file, that file browser open, right? All we know about file browser open is that it's got open from path and whatever. Once that can expose the schema, we would know that path needs to be a string. And maybe it needs to be a string that starts with a period or something like that. So you can imagine going from this kind of ugly nonsense to here's a humanely described, translatable description of what you can do with your application. So, doing that in the browser is not so exciting, but I think being able to do this from the command line opens a lot of opportunities, right? So it's not Jig's purview to do this, but you could make a describe the current element, right? So you're using a screen reader, you run your terminal, it's worked for the last 40 years, it's going to keep working. You open a notebook, and then you have something that allows it to describe what's in there. So it's got a notebook, it's got 10 cells, it's got 4 pictures, whatever, just like a quick way to describe what is seen in your application without trying to integrate directly with the browser. So there are a lot of directions that we can go as the metadata improves. Yeah, so it works with the Jupyter Notebook server, but only if you have Jupyter server less than 2, which means it works on Binder, and that's the important part. Yeah, I'm imagining the version that supports Notebook 7 and Jupyter Lab 4 won't support the old one. So get it while it's hot if you're on it. So anyhow, it's on GitHub at github.com/deathbeds. And it is now, it's got a little read the docs with a little demo in Jupyter Lite. It's up on PyPy and CondaForge and NPM and all that stuff. So, it's like 3 days old, but it's pretty usable already. Questions or maybe there's some in the chat. Here's one. Buckle up, folks. So that's it. I'm done. I mean, like, what? All right, Carlos.
Right. Hi, Nick. That was pretty cool, actually. You
Thanks.
did. So I have a question that is regarding Jig itself. That is, so I have this Jupyter Hub where I launch some Jupyter notebooks, and there are some actions. Actually, right now, one action that I want to be that I want to accomplish as soon as the notebook is launched, which is to open, for instance, a README file there with instructions to the users the user that is opening or going to use the notebook. And so the question is, would Jig be the solution for that? For example, as soon as it launches, second thing is to Jig open the README file, or is there another way to do that on on Jupyter Lab? This is the first.
Oh, sorry. Go for it.
And then the second one is just that you did some magic there, that the demo icon in the launcher, that for me was complete magic, and I would like to know, how do I do that? That is awesome.
Sure. All right. So the quick one, can you use this in Hub? I guess, you know, when you're launching it, so the way that it figures out where it runs its stuff right now, is it calls the list running servers method. So it only works with local ones right now, but this is the default. So theoretically, if you know, but you wouldn't know the token until if you knew the token in advance, you could do it.
No, that's fine.
What I would recommend, if you know a lot of things about that stuff in advance, you probably want to look into Jupyter Lab workspaces. If it's notebooks, it doesn't work with notebook. So
right, Lab.
So don't ask. Yeah, so it's got a managing workspaces. So if you create a default workspace and land that in your container or on your Slurm thing or whatever, then bam, it'll just always open that, like any number of files up, right?
Awesome.
So that might be a little like Jig's. It's probably got some security issues, and I think if you're running it in a big hosted environment, there's probably things that I haven't fully thought about. I mean, it does what it can. Like if you already have access to the server, you have access to the server, and that's not going to change anything, right?
Right.
So you know that there's no threat model there. The other one on the launcher items, inside of a lab extension. So are you interested in how that worked from a code perspective, or how, like, you know?
I'm interested in creating launchers, in creating custom buttons, custom actions in the launcher. And
Yeah,
maybe I'm totally ignorant here, but I couldn't find an easy way to do that. And you did
it's not. Yeah, there's nothing built in. So there's Jupyter Starters, which has a very opinionated set of things. So you get lots of pretty launchers there, and it's got a single config file. That's more for like templates of stuff, right? I want to start a template thing. Unfortunately, there's another one, but I don't remember what it's called, and I meant to put that in my README. There was that Jupyter Lab commands, but that doesn't really do launchers. But there's another one out there that does related stuff. So yeah, that could probably be improved. We've been slowly moving more and more of Jupyter Lab configuration into things that you can put into files. So you know, really just having like arbitrary command launcher as something in core makes a lot of sense. You can do arbitrary menu items, you can do arbitrary toolbar configurations for the notebook just by changing JSON files, but you can't add launchers. and you can't add command palette items. Like this also appears in the demo command board. Yeah. So being able to add confections of commands from JSON would be super useful. Yeah.
Indeed. Okay, cool. Awesome. Thank you.
No doubt. All right, Stephen. I can't tell who raised their hand first. Maybe
I
that's what it
believe
means.
Stephen, if
All
I
right.
know how this works.
Yeah, sorry, I keep forgetting that I'm muted. This is really cool. I'm really intrigued by the ability to run like registered commands, you know, in like a more automated fashion from the command line. I know Jupyter has like its own front end testing framework already, but I'm wondering if you could use Jig to do something like build like a more application level testing framework where you just string together commands and then see if, you know, the state of the notebook matches some expected state.
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, if you don't want to mess around. Well, so mine's all tested with Selenium because I'm kind of old school. And so whatever. So I do it that way. Galata's there, but you're highly tied to exactly the JupyterLab application, and you still got to write TypeScript. So yeah, I mean, I think if you could get down to here's a small list of bash scripts, and I didn't even do the kernel because there's already there's already IPyLab. If you're in Python, just go use IPyLab because it just runs commands like all day long. So you know you can run IPyLab from here or whatever, but like I didn't even want to touch that because this is already done and tested and it works. So yeah, you could. A lot of the commands they don't accept enough args, and if you don't, or rather, a lot of the commands if you don't provide enough args or just then they pop open a dialog or something and they block execution until that happens. So I don't have any that are keyed up because they're boring, but I think as we improve the data model, it'll be easier to operate them from other tools. Yeah. So,
Gotcha.
but yeah, I mean, like you could use that. So let's say you had an expensive visualization toolkit that, as one of its side effects, it could save its state to the browser. So Vega does that. I've used that in a couple applications where it actually updates the notebook display metadata with stuff that the browser finds. So yeah, you could do this without commanding the browser, just working with a nice JSON schema of the commands that you have. So yeah, there could definitely be value in that. But this isn't going to do that for you because, you know, I need to use this in other places to do that kind of stuff, right? So the idea is to keep Jig as lightweight as possible.
Makes sense. Thanks so much.
Yeah, man. Thanks for your demo. Darian.
Hey, nice demo. Cool project. And I kind of want to know your thoughts on this general class of problem we have. So more than once in the recent past that I've been asked, how can I invoke a command in JupyterLab without taking a user action? I want to launch JupyterLab and I want it to do a bunch of stuff. And one answer is workspaces. I've been wondering about, we have multiple URLs that we answer and do stuff to, and some of them are transient. Like if you put reset in your URL, the reset will disappear once the reset action has happened. And so I've been wondering about a generic command launching URL that does a similar thing. It reads a command, it reads its URL encoded args and executes them and then removes that stuff from the URL. But that's kind of an off the cuff idea I've had without really thinking through the ramifications. Since you've been in the command world a lot recently, what do you think of this problem, and what's a way to approach it?
Well, anything that's URL based is immediately a threat target. So we've been fighting really hard on, for example, on Jupyter Lite, like, no, I'm not going to go fetch your random resource and run it in your browser. I know they'd be useful to you, but we're not going to put that in Jupyter Core. I'll let somebody else write that extension and then I won't install it. But, you know, so I feel like if that was a thing, then you would make it a plugin and it would have a bunch of settings for which commands that you can have, because it's not exciting if you send the command to shut down the application and close the browser, because that's a command. So maybe that's the best way to end my demo, right? Is to shut down and watch everything burn. File browser shutdown, file menu shutdown, kernel menu shutdown. They all have shutdowns. What'll happen? File browser shutdown. It did not shut down my server. I don't know. But you know what I'm saying? Like there's bad stuff in there, right? Like there's because it's used for everything, including the things that you wouldn't normally want to do. It's kind of a, yeah, here we go. What are you? Okay, there was that one. So anyhow, yeah, so I think doubling down on workspaces is kind of the boo. So if you had startup commands that you know, it said that this workspace would like to run the following commands. Would you like to run them? And then you get the nice human readable content back and all that stuff. And that, you know, to the point earlier, it's something that a sysadmin can build into their system and not be worried about, you know, clickjacking and stuff like that, right? I mean, you know, you imagine if someone had a environment management system. So the commands I would like you to run are, you know, pip install malware, and then malware, because you've given me this nice, you know, command thing, pip install malware, malware.exfiltrate, you know, tilde.ssh pub, or not SSH, the IDRSA, right? Like there's so many bad things that.
But those are command line commands. They're not built-ins into Jupyter Lab. Like, yeah, you can presumably craft a URL where as soon as somebody goes to it, their server shuts down, which is like annoying and potential data loss. So I can definitely see bad things, but really you're not going to be able to pip install from the command line, right?
Why not?
Well, because do we have a command that allows you to execute backend CLI commands?
If you're running a self-service portal and you've given people Gator so that they can install packages, yeah, absolutely. I'm just saying, like in the general class, I would not treat commands as safe.
Okay. All right, cool. I mean, let's talk about this maybe at the lab call or something. I'm very interested in how to allow for use cases that you want basically to share a link that does something creative for your users, but also without increasing our security footprint. Thanks again, Nick.
You mean?
Yeah, thanks as always for surprising demos. Maybe I'll say surprising today. I never know what's going to happen. So that was really cool. Ultimate command palette type stuff. But yeah, anyone have any last thoughts? I'd like to get to, we have 2 questions at the end of our agenda, but just checking. Okay, yeah, thank you all. Thanks for the great demo. Thanks for the great discussion too. I'm glad that this got so many people thinking about, oh, what can I do? Nick, we're seeing your screen still. If I don't think you meant to show your email probably. Okay, yeah, thanks. Awesome. So the next thing we have on here, Gail, you mentioned you had some stuff you wanted to say about JupyterCon.
Yes, I did. So we are, I'm not as an event planner in panic mode, but we are about 14 and a half weeks out from the event. So it's coming up real quick. And part of the help I was hoping to kind of enlist you guys or hit you up with for ideas and then throw my email on it so you can just kind of throw them my way offline, is promoting the event. I can lean on the I have a committee that's helping me out, and we're hitting up the obvious like Pie Ladies in Paris and the obvious groups. But I think our promotional plan is still kind of forming around it, and I'd love to get more of the word out about the conference. So if you don't know, this year's conference that's rapidly coming is going to be on May 10th through 12th in Paris at the City of Science and Industry Museum. Is the English translation, but it's the largest science museum, I believe, in Europe. But in addition to all of that, which you've probably already heard, thank you very much, Darren, is that the sprints, we do have sprints in the same building, and that will be on the 13th and 14th on that weekend. So all of that is on our website, along with the sprint tickets, so you can reserve your sprint tickets now. But I just wanted to kind of take a moment and make sure that I'm spending some time promoting the event, because I'm right now so thick in the details of producing it. Sometimes the promotion is left to the wayside. So I wanted to hit you guys up for this. So I'm not looking for things now because we have limited time, but I'm going to throw my email in the chat, and please throw anything out my way. I appreciate the any contributions or feedback. Thank you.
Yeah, I have one quick question. I shot an email to the JupyterCon contact list, but I haven't heard back. Will there be a online attendance option for JupyterCon?
So the well, first of all, let me go back through that email, and I apologize for for missing that one. Unfortunately, this one's going to be an in-person event. We are recording. It's going to be much like the Pi Data events. We'll record and then we'll throw it up online as quickly as we can, but there'll probably be some delay and it won't be live streamed. We wanted to make this upcoming year, this year's event, first and in person before we dip our toe into doing all the bells and whistles.
Thanks.
Yeah. One quick idea I've thrown the committee's way is possibly having something like Pi Data Global and having a separate online event, much shorter, much shorter. But giving that accessibility on the other side. But these are all kind of in the work ideas.
Just as an offhand anecdote, I know a bunch of people at Notable were interested in attending both PyCon and JupyterCon, but with JupyterCon happening kind of shortly after PyCon, a lot of us who have, especially us who have kids, have trouble balancing like one trip and then shortly after that another long trip.
Yeah, I knew that was going to be when we were trying to find dates. We really struggled with that because that was one of the events, because Tanya is on that committee, and so Tanya Allard, and so we were hoping that, yeah.
Well, Gail, do you want your email to stick with the notes for recommendations or just
Yes,
in the chat?
please.
Okay, I will
Yes.
copy that over.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Any final thoughts before we switch to Kaepernick? Okay.
Thanks, Isabella. Yeah, this is my first time joining this Jupyter conference call, so I appreciate you maintaining it and keeping it going because it's nice to be able to connect. I have been trying to connect with other parts of the Jupyter community that are working on the real-time collaboration with YJS, YPI, the YCRDT stuff. And I've had trouble with those. I've jumped on a couple of the different like Y community meetings that are on the Jupyter calendar, and I think they're kind of dead meetings. Darian, do you have, can you point me in the right direction to collaborate?
Yeah, so we used to have a dedicated RTC call, but it was at a phase where there was a lot more discussion. Now that we're nearer the actual release and the implementation is mostly there, the conversations around RTC happen typically at the Jupyter Lab call on Wednesdays. And if there's no specific RTC thing being talked about at any time, that's still going to contain the largest group of people who know about it. So if you came and raised specific questions or general questions even, that would be the place where you're likeliest to find people who are involved and actively working on it.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I'll start jumping on the Jupyter Lab calls.
Sweet.
The other thing I'll just very briefly demo, I suppose, is I've made a couple contributions to the YPI repo recently. And one of the things that I've done is added YPI being built as a WASM wheel, and the WASM wheels are attached to the releases. Unfortunately, PyPI.org won't host WASM wheels. I would love if we could try and engage PyPI like at PyCon, or part of the Jupyter community could help kind of push that PEP or that issue on PyPI for them to host WASM wheels. But a cool thing you can do once YPI is built in WASM is you can do something like you can have live collaboration on different. This is just a Quill.js binding or Quill.js canvas. This particular web page is being served out by pure JavaScript with the YJS YQuill framework. Whereas over here on this one, which is live syncing, this is served out with a Quill.js front end, but all of the deltas that the Quill.js framework is generating, the callbacks, are being delegated to a web worker running Pyodide with YPI in Pyodide. So it lets us use that YJS, YPI collaborative data model, but all on Python in the Pyodide side. Unfortunately, it's hard to kind of get that installed because in Pyodide, you can't just pip install YPI because it's not on PyPI. So you have to like host the WASM wheel somewhere and download the WASM wheel, write it to the Pyodide file system, and then pip install it from there. Anyways, that's it. Thanks.
No, it's a really good question. I was checking as well if I found anything within like the Y community for other calls, because I was going to the RTC calls for a while and we had a bit of overlap with their community, but I'm not seeing anything right away. Darian's suggestion is probably your best bet at the moment. Yeah, thank you for asking though. I was wondering if those calendar events were confusing people and or they should maybe be edited, but I wasn't sure if they were there intentionally for a reason. So good call out. Yes, everyone. Wow, we are almost like exactly at time today. Amazing work on that, y'all. With that, I think I will stop recording and say thank you so much. We will have a call next month. That should be correct on the Jupyter community calendar, but I'll check. Sometimes it's a week off because of how it gets auto scheduled. But yeah. Thank you so much. I will see you soon if I know how to stop recording. Do I? Yes.